I love it at the end of an assembly at the school when I say, does any child have a question? Although, if I am being completely honest, I think it's the most dangerous part of my week because, as you know, children will ask anything. But over time, I have learned a very important survival strategy. The further back the child is sitting, the safer the question tends to be. The tiny ones right at the front, well, they have absolutely no filter. Last week, I was feeling unusually brave, so I picked one of the smallest reception children, sat right at the front. And as soon as I pointed to them, I realised I may have made a terrible mistake, because at that moment, I had absolutely no idea what was coming. It could have been something deeply theological. Who created God? Well, we had been talking about creation. That would have made sense. Or it could have been something equally as profound. Vicky, why are your trousers always too long? Or my personal favourite that I once received, are you married to God? So I stood there, bracing myself, and the question came, why are you a Christian? Now, that sounded like a reasonable question, but I knew that I had about 5 seconds to answer it before the child would lose interest and go back to whatever it is reception children do during assembly, which on this particular day involved carefully picking off the scab of the leg of a child sat next to them. So I went with the simplest and most honest answer I could think of. I'm a Christian because I have a relationship with Jesus. I know he loves me more than I can ever imagine. And even when I mess up, he still wants the best for me. The child seemed satisfied with that answer and then immediately returned to the scab, which I took as a sign that my sermon had gone on long enough. Later that week, I was asked exactly the same question, this time by a woman at Winchester Cathedral. And I remember thinking, crumbs, this is going to be trickier. I knew she was hoping for something deeper than a 5-second answer I'd given to my young friend. But how do you explain faith, your encounter with Jesus, the love you feel from God, without sounding slightly odd? And then I realised something quite surprising. The answer wasn't actually that different. It came down to relationship. Being a Christian is about knowing that Jesus sees all of me and loves me all the same. It means I cannot hide the darker parts of myself from him, but I can bring them to him. And he helps me slowly iron them out. And in many ways, that simple truth lies right in the heart of the gospel story we've heard today. In John chapter 4, Jesus meets a woman at the well in Samaria. At first glance, it looks like a simple conversation. But actually, it's a moment full of tension and broken boundaries. Between Jesus and this woman, there are at least 4 enormous boundaries. He is a man, she is a woman. He is Jewish, she is a Samaritan. He is a teacher, and she is someone with a difficult reputation in her community. We see social barriers, religious barriers, moral barriers, even centuries of hostility between their people. In fact, many Jews in Jesus' day would take a longer route rather than travel through Samaria at all. But Jesus chooses to go straight through it. Yes, it did shorten the journey geographically, but I suspect there was a deeper reason. Because Jesus' love is always greater than the barriers of this world, greater than our fears and our divisions and our wounds. And so there he sits, at Jacob's well, tired from his journey, when this Samaritan woman comes to draw water in the heat of the day. And here, Jesus does something amazing. He speaks to her. He asks her for a drink. With this one simple request, he crosses every boundary that society had carefully built. But what is even more striking is what happens next. Jesus shows her that he knows her story. He knows about the 500 husbands. He knows about the man she is living with now. He knows the parts of her life that others probably whisper about. And yet, he does not shame her. He does not humiliate her. Instead, that knowledge becomes an invitation. He shows her that he sees her whole life and still offers her something more. He offers her living water. Water that will truly satisfy the deeper thirst within her. Because, like many of us, she's been trying to quench that thirst in ways that never quite work. And suddenly, this conversation becomes an encounter with the love of God. And that encounter changes everything. Because this woman who had been avoiding people, coming to the well alone in the heat of the day, well, she runs back to the town, back to the very people that she had been avoiding. And she says to them, "Come and see a man who told me everything I have ever done. Could he be the Messiah?" Now, she has no theological training, no evangelism course, no carefully prepared speech. All she has is this encounter with Jesus. And that is enough. Her simple witness brings the whole town to come and meet him. And today, on International Women's Day, it is worth pausing to notice just how significant this is. Because in this moment, Jesus entrusts the news of who he is, the Messiah, to a Samaritan woman standing in the midday heat at a well. Someone society had pushed into the margins becomes the one who carries the good news. Again and again in the Gospels, we see this pattern. Women are not pushed aside by Jesus. They are trusted, they are honoured, and they are sent. Women are the first witnesses to the resurrection. Women are among the most faithful followers throughout Jesus' ministry. And the same remains true today. The church is richer and stronger and more faithful when it listens and it celebrates the gifts of courage, leadership, and witness of women across the world. But the good news of this story is not only about the one who shares the message. It's about the message itself. Because at the centre of all of this is the same simple truth that I shared with that reception child. Jesus knows us completely. The good parts, the complicated parts, the parts that we try to hide. And still he offers us living water. Still he offers us relationship, and still he offers us love. And when we truly encounter that love, something in us cannot help but share it. Like the woman in the well, we find ourselves saying to others, "Come and see." You don't need to be a theologian to evangelize. You simply need an encounter with the God of love. And that is the good news for every one of us, because the same Jesus who met that woman at the well still meets with us today. He meets us in our questions, in our thirst, in our complicated lives. And when we encounter him, we too are invited to leave our water jars behind and go and tell the world, "Come and see." Amen.